He saved the alien queen's life. Her reward left him shaking. Jonas Hartley's nose caught it 3 seconds before the first blade fell, something bitter threading through the ceremonial incense, wrong enough that his hand moved to his sidearm before his brain finished processing why. The Ascendancy guards lining the negotiation chamber stood motionless as statues, their silver armor reflecting the pale light filtering through the ice-carved walls. Ambassador Haynes was mid-sentence, droning through the final provisions of the trade agreement when Jonas pushed back from the table. "We need to leave now." Queen Astraea's amber eyes fixed on him across the translucent surface. Her expression remained perfectly neutral, but something flickered in that golden gaze, curiosity perhaps, or calculation. "Attaché Hartley, this is hardly," Haynes started. The Queen's advisor collapsed first, pale blue fingers clawing at his throat. Then the guards by the eastern archway dropped in perfect synchronization, and Jonas stopped waiting for permission. He vaulted the table as the ceremonial doors exploded inward, rebel soldiers pouring through with plasma rifles already firing. The remaining royal guards moved into defensive formation with mechanical precision, stepping between their queen and the attackers in textbook formation, which left her completely exposed to the 3 soldiers dropping from the ventilation shafts above. Jonas caught the first one in midair, redirecting his momentum into the second. His combat knife found the third's throat before the body hit the ground. He grabbed Astraea's wrist, her skin cold enough to sting even through his gloves, and pulled her sideways as plasma fire scorched the air where she'd been standing. "Your Majesty, remain behind the honor guard," Orvith wheezed from the floor, still following protocol even as poison shut down his respiratory system. "She'll be dead in 30 seconds if she does," Jonas said, already moving. He dragged her toward the service entrance, the one he'd memorized during the week-long security briefings that everyone else found tedious. The rebel soldiers were good, but they fought like they'd studied the same tactical manual as the royal guards. Predictable, formal, waiting for their targets to retreat along established routes. Jonas went through the kitchen instead. "This is sacrilege," Astraea said, her voice steady even as he shoved her behind an industrial cooling unit. She hadn't screamed, hadn't panicked, just observed, those golden eyes tracking every movement. "This is survival." He grabbed a container of flash-frozen volatiles from the prep station. The Ascendancy used them for their culinary presentations, and lobbed it back through the door they'd entered. The explosion wouldn't kill anyone through their armor, but the sudden temperature spike and resulting steam cloud would blind thermal sensors for precious seconds. "The honor corridor is to the west," Astraea said, "which is exactly where they'll expect you to run." Jonas pulled her through the servants' passages, narrow corridors the ceremonial architecture tried to pretend didn't exist. Voices echoed behind them, clipped Ascendancy military commands, getting closer. He counted at least 8 distinct speakers. The odds weren't improving. They emerged into a loading bay, and Jonas spotted their exit, a diplomatic transport, human-made, its engines already humming with pre-flight warm-up. Someone on the delegation had the same idea about evacuation. He keyed his comm. "Haynes, if you're alive, we're commandeering the shuttle in Bay 7. Static answered. Then plasma fire stitched across the shuttle's hull, and it listed sideways as the landing gear melted. So much for that option. "New plan," Jonas said. He pulled Astraea toward the maintenance lift, the kind used for moving cargo between levels. Rebel soldiers rounded the corner as the doors closed, their shots sparking against the metal. The lift shuddered downward into darkness. "You have no plan," Astraea observed. "I have half a plan. That's better than standing still." Her hand was still in his. He hadn't let go, and she hadn't pulled away. In the dim emergency lighting, her skin seemed to glow faintly, some property of Ascendancy biology he'd never been close enough to notice before. Her white hair had come partially loose from its intricate braiding, softening the severe lines of her face. "Why did you not simply follow Ambassador Haynes to the designated safe room?" she asked. "Because I was watching their eyes. The rebels, they weren't looking at the safe room, they were looking at you." The lift groaned to a stop. Jonas forced the doors open manually, and they stepped into the subterranean section of the palace complex. Old infrastructure, pre-modern, the kind of place that didn't appear on official schematics. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. His breath misted in the frigid air. "You are bleeding," Astraea said. Jonas glanced down. A plasma shot had clipped his shoulder during the initial attack. Cauterized but still seeping. He hadn't noticed. "I've had worse." That is not reassuring. Footsteps echoed from the lift shaft above. Jonas pulled her deeper into the tunnels, relying on touch and instinct as much as vision. His shoulder was starting to hurt now, that delayed pain finally registering. Astraea moved silently beside him, her movements fluid despite the restrictive ceremonial armor she wore. They emerged into what looked like an ancient throne room, abandoned centuries ago when the current palace was built above it. Ice formations had reclaimed the space, creating natural pillars that caught and refracted the faint luminescence of fungal growth on the walls. "This was the first palace," Astraea said softly. "I have only seen it in historical records." "Great, we can write a dissertation later." But she'd stopped moving, and when Jonas turned, he found her staring at something carved into the far wall. Intricate symbols that seemed to pulse with meaning he couldn't read. "The trial by blood," she said, "the ancient law. Your Majesty, we need to. You saved my life during a formal challenge to my rule. These rebels attacked during sanctioned negotiations, which constitutes a trial by combat under the old codes. You are my champion, by right and deed." Jonas's tactical mind finally caught up. "That's not what I—" "It does not matter what you intended, it matters what you did." She turned to face him, and something had shifted in her expression. "By the ancient laws carved in this very stone, witnessed by blood spilled in my defense, you are bound to me, my consort, my property." The word hung in the cold air between them. "I'm a diplomatic attaché," Jonas said slowly. "You were a diplomatic attaché, now you are mine." Footsteps approached from multiple directions. They were surrounded. Jonas raised his weapon, calculating angles and ammunition, knowing the math didn't work. Astraea stepped in front of him, her voice carrying through the ancient chamber with absolute authority. "Stand down, all of you. This human is under my personal protection by right of the trial by blood. Harm him and you challenge the throne itself." The rebel soldiers emerged from the shadows, weapons trained, but hesitating. In the doorway behind them, Jonas could see royal guards, actual loyal ones, with General Vorin at their head. "My queen," Vorin said, bowing, "thank the ancestors you are safe." Astraea's hand found Jonas's wrist, her cold fingers circling it like a shackle. "Safe," she agreed and claimed. Jonas woke to silk against his skin and something that smelled like frost and starlight. His shoulder throbbed. Someone had treated it, sealed the wound with medical gel. The room was enormous. Walls of pale blue stone stretched toward a vaulted ceiling where light fixtures cast soft illumination. Every surface gleamed with ascendancy perfection, cold, flawless, beautiful. He sat up, inventory checking automatically. His clothes were gone, replaced by gray garments that fit perfectly. His weapons were missing. The door was across the room, probably locked. 3 exits if he counted the balcony overlooking a fatal drop. "You assess your surroundings efficiently," Astraea said. She stood by the balcony, backlit by pale sky. Without ceremonial armor, she wore something flowing that left her arms bare. Ritual markings traced up her shoulders and neck, moving slightly as she breathed. "Habit," Jonas said. "Where's Ambassador Haynes?" "Return to Earth, the trade negotiations are postponed." "And I'm still here because—" Astraea turned. She was striking. Something in the way she held herself, perfect control wrapped around something volatile. Her eyes caught the light like polished amber. "You know why?" "The ancient law thing." Jonas stood, testing his shoulder. "Earth's legal system doesn't recognize claims based on ceremonial combat." "We are not on Earth." She moved closer, each step deliberate. Her fingers brushed his injured shoulder. "Does it hurt?" "I've had worse." "You said that before. You have a concerning tolerance for damage." Her hand trailed down his arm, cold enough to raise goosebumps. "You belong to me, Jonas Hartley. By law, by blood, by the old ways. Do you understand what that means?" Jonas caught her wrist gently but firmly. It means you're using an ancient loophole to keep a useful asset close. Smart politics. But let's not pretend this is anything more than strategy. Something flashed in her eyes. You think you understand me? I think I understand leverage when I see it. She pulled free with surprising strength. The ceremony begins at sunset. Talvira will instruct you in proper conduct. Try not to embarrass me in front of the entire court. No promises. Astraea paused at the door. You will address me as my queen in public. In private, Astraea is acceptable. What if I prefer your majesty? Then you will learn otherwise. Talvira arrived an hour later, the guard captain whose distrust radiated like heat. Scars marked her face, 3 parallel lines she wore like medals. The queen demands too much of you too quickly, Talvira said, but the law is the law. Pay attention. She walked him through the ceremony, where to stand, when to kneel, which words to repeat. Protocol was Byzantine, layers of tradition wrapped around public claiming. Why are you helping me? Jonas asked. I am not helping you. I am protecting my queen from embarrassment. Talvira's expression hardened. You saved her life. That earns respect. But if you hurt her, politically or otherwise, I will kill you in ways that violate several interstellar treaties. Fair enough. Is it true you noticed the poison before our sensors detected it? Jonas shrugged. Wrong smell. Your people filter everything through technology. Sometimes the best sensor is the one evolution gave you. Talvira studied him with new interest. Perhaps you are not completely useless. The ceremony was worse than anticipated. The grand hall held what looked like half the ascendancy aristocracy. Jonas wore ceremonial robes, deep blue with silver threading, heavier than they looked. Astraea sat on her throne, a construction of ice and metal that seemed to grow from the floor. She looked different here, more regal, more dangerous, more like the absolute ruler of an empire that could crush Earth without effort. Orvith stood beside her, recovered but moving stiffly. His eyes tracked Jonas with open disapproval. The human will approach, he announced. Jonas walked forward, feeling every eye dissecting him. He reached the throne and knelt. The stone was cold enough to hurt. Jonas Hartley of Earth, Astraea's voice carried through the chamber. You have saved our life through valor and cunning. By the ancient law, by the trial by blood, we claim you as consort and champion. Do you accept this bond? He could feel Talvira's glare. I accept, he said. Astraea descended. She wore something that combined armor and evening wear. Up close, her hands trembled slightly, the only sign this wasn't effortless. She touched his face, tilting his chin up. Her fingers were ice against his skin. Then rise, consort, you are ours. The formal part ended. Jonas found himself surrounded by nobles who wanted to see Earth's gift to their queen. Most were polite the way predators are polite. A few were openly hostile. Your species is barely spacefaring, one aristocrat said. What could you possibly offer our queen beyond novelty? I keep her alive, Jonas, novel but useful. Laughter rippled through the nobles. Astraea watched from across the room, engaged in conversation with General Vorin. Something about the general bothered Jonas. An explosion rocked the building. Nobles scattered, but Jonas was already moving. He grabbed a ceremonial blade from a wall display and sprinted toward Astraea. Talvira had the same idea, plasma rifle drawn. Smoke billowed through the eastern entrance. Armed rebels moved through it. This is getting repetitive, Jonas said, pulling Astraea behind a pillar. Apparently someone wants me very dead, she replied, calm despite chaos. Talvira and the royal guards formed a defensive perimeter, but the rebels had numbers and better positions. Jonas spotted the problem. They were being herded toward the western exit, where Vorin was shouting orders. Too coordinated. We're going up, Jonas said. The upper galleries have no exits, Astraea protested. Exactly, they won't expect it. He pulled her toward the spiral staircase, Talvira covering their retreat. They reached the second level as rebels took the main floor. Jonas looked down at Vorin coordinating the guards, at rebels who seemed to know exactly where to push. The pattern clicked. Your general is compromised, he said quietly. Astraea followed his gaze, something cold passing over her features. Prove it, she whispered. Below, Vorin directed guards to pursue rebels out the western entrance, leaving the throne room undefended. 3 rebels who'd been hiding moved toward Astraea's abandoned throne, toward something beneath it. "He's after something specific," Jonas said. "What's under your throne?" "The succession seal. Without it, my claim to rule is ceremonial only." The rebels reached the throne. One pulled out a device. Jonas didn't think. He vaulted over the gallery railing, ceremonial robes tearing. He hit the first rebel hard. The blade found the second rebel's throat. The third got a shot off that burned past his ribs before Talvira's rifle ended him. Jonas rolled to his feet, pain screaming. The device lay on the floor, undamaged. He grabbed it and looked up to find Vorin staring at him, expression carefully neutral. "Well done, consort," Vorin said. "You have quick reflexes." "Quick enough," Jonas replied, meeting his eyes. The general's smile didn't reach his eyes. Later, in her chambers, Astraea pressed her hand against Jonas's burned ribs. Medical gel spread through the wound like liquid frost. "You could have died," she said. "But I didn't. Vorin will not move against you openly now. You have shown your value." Her fingers traced the wound's edge, almost gentle. "He will be more careful, more dangerous." Jonas caught her hand. "Why did you really claim me? Don't say the ancient law. You're too smart to let tradition dictate strategy." Astraea met his eyes, and for the first time Jonas saw something unguarded, raw and real. "Because you are chaos, Jonas Hartley. You see patterns we miss, act when we hesitate, break our rules to save our lives. And chaos is the only thing that will keep me alive long enough to find who truly wants me dead." She leaned closer, breath cold against his lips. "You are mine, but perhaps I am becoming yours as well." The kiss was ice and fire, control and desperation, and Jonas stopped trying to separate strategy from something infinitely more dangerous. Jonas woke with Astraea's cold fingers tracing the new scar on his ribs. Dawn light filtered through the crystalline walls, painting her skin in shades of pearl and sapphire. She'd stayed the night, not out of sentiment, he reminded himself, but strategy. Keep the useful chaos close. "You sleep restlessly," she said. "Nightmares?" "Tactical assessments. Your general is planning something." "Vorin has served the Ascendancy for 40 years. His loyalty is beyond question." "His loyalty to the Ascendancy, maybe, not necessarily to you." Astraea's hand stilled against his skin. She rolled onto her back, staring at the ceiling. The ritual markings on her shoulders pulsed faintly with her heartbeat. He'd learned that last night, along with several other details about Ascendancy biology that textbooks never mentioned. "There is something I have not told you," she said quietly. "About the first attack, the coup." Jonas waited. She turned her head, amber eyes catching the light. "I knew it was coming. Not the specifics, but that an attempt would be made. I allowed myself to be vulnerable to draw out the conspirators." The words hung between them. Jonas sat up slowly. "You used yourself as bait. And your guards, your advisors, they were supposed to be enough to handle it." "Yes, but I interfered with your carefully laid trap, and now the conspirators have gone underground." Jonas stood, anger building. "I'm not your savior. I'm the variable that ruined your investigation." Astraea rose with fluid grace, wrapping a silk robe around herself. "You are the variable that kept me alive when the plan failed. The poison in the incense was not part of the expected attack. Someone escalated beyond my intelligence reports." "So you're telling me this now because I need you to help me finish what I started. The conspiracy goes deeper than a simple coup. Someone within my inner circle is coordinating with rebel factions, and they will try again." She moved closer, and Jonas caught that scent again. Frost and something indefinable. "I have been studying you, Jonas Hartley. The way you think, the patterns you see that my people miss. You notice what should not be there instead of what should be. I need that mind working for me, not against me. You could have just asked instead of invoking ancient laws and claiming me like property." "Could I? Would you have agreed?" Her fingers touched his chest, right over his heart. "Or would you have insisted on protocols, committees, proper channels that would have leaked my suspicions to the very people I hunt?" She had a point. Jonas caught her hand, holding it against his heartbeat. You're asking me to trust you after you've manipulated me from the beginning. I am asking you to use me as I use you. We both know this started as strategy. Her other hand traced his jaw. But last night was not entirely strategic, was it? Last night was a mistake. Liar. She kissed him, and Jonas stopped pretending that strategy and desire occupied separate categories. Her skin was cold as deep water, but her mouth was warm, demanding. He pulled her closer, feeling her body yield against his in ways that had nothing to do with politics. When they broke apart, Astraea's control had cracked. Her breathing came faster, the ritual markings on her skin glowing brighter. "Help me," she whispered. "Help me find who wants me dead, and I will give you a choice. Stay or leave, your freedom once this is finished." Jonas thought about Earth, about the diplomatic corps that would never take him back now, about the cold halls of the Ascendancy Palace and the woman who'd claimed him, about the way she trembled when he touched her neck, the one place her perfect control couldn't maintain. "I'll help, but we do this my way." Relief flashed across her face. "What is your way?" "We stop defending, we attack." The plan came together over breakfast. Astraea's private chambers had a tactical display, holographic projections that showed the palace hierarchy in 3 dimensions. Jonas studied it while eating something that tasted vaguely like bread but had the texture of clouds. "Vorin is too obvious," he said, gesturing at the general's node. "He's either the mastermind or another pawn. My guess is pawn." "He commands the palace guard," Astraea countered. "Without his cooperation, no coup succeeds." "Which is exactly why he's too obvious. Real conspirators would keep him loyal and use him as cover." Jonas expanded the display, looking at the second-tier officials. "Who benefits most from your death?" "The succession passes to the Council of Elders until a new monarch is chosen. Protocol dictates at least 5 years of deliberation." 5 years of power-sharing among the council. Who sits on it? Astraea highlighted 6 nodes. Jonas studied their positions, their connections, the web of influence that tied them to various military and commercial interests. "This one," he said, pointing to Councillor Theron. "Trade oversight. He opposed the Earth negotiations most vocally." "Theron is elderly and cautious. I cannot see him orchestrating assassination." "No, but I can see him looking the other way while someone else does. Who's his protégé?" Astraea's fingers danced through the display. A younger face appeared, sharp features, calculating eyes. "Kelnar. He commands the eastern garrison." "The rebel lieutenant from the first attack," Jonas said, "the one who survived." Their eyes met across the holographic display. "We need him alive," Astraea said, "to testify. We need him rattled enough to make mistakes. There's a difference." They found Kelnar at a diplomatic function that evening, one of those formal affairs where the ascendancy aristocracy gathered to trade gossip and implied threats. Jonas wore more ceremonial robes, he was building quite a collection, and stood at Astraea's side like an ornament. Kelnar was younger than Jonas expected, barely 30 in ascendancy years. He bowed to Astraea with perfect form, but his eyes lingered on Jonas with poorly concealed curiosity. "Your Majesty, I must congratulate you on your acquisition. The court speaks of little else." "My consort has proven quite valuable," Astraea replied, her tone perfectly neutral. "He has a remarkable talent for noticing details others miss." "Such as?" Jonas smiled, letting his gaze drift deliberately to the Eastern Garrison's insignia on Kelnar's dress uniform. "Such as how rebel forces always seem to know exactly where to strike for maximum impact, almost like someone's feeding them tactical intelligence." Kelnar's expression didn't change, but a muscle in his jaw twitched. "Troubling if true. I hope our security forces are investigating thoroughly." "Oh, they are," Jonas said. "In fact, I've been helping. Turns out human intelligence techniques work quite well on ascendancy conspiracies." "I am certain you are imagining threats that do not exist. Consort. Perhaps the stress of your new position affects your judgment." Astraea's hand found Jonas's arm, her fingers cool through the fabric. "My consort's judgment has kept me alive twice now. I trust it implicitly." Kelnar bowed again and retreated into the crowd, but Jonas caught the way his hand moved to his communication device. "He will report this conversation," Astraea murmured. That's the idea. Scared conspirators make mistakes. They circulated through the party, Astraea playing her role with practiced ease while Jonas watched the reactions. Kelnar spoke briefly with General Vorin. Vorin's expression darkened. Two other officers in Kelnar's faction clustered together, whispering urgently. "They're moving faster than I expected," Jonas said quietly. "Perhaps we pushed too hard. Or perhaps they're desperate. Either way, we'll know soon." The attack came at midnight. Not rebels this time. Professional assassins, silent and efficient, moving through the palace darkness like ghosts. Jonas woke to the whisper of displaced air and rolled sideways as a blade embedded itself in his pillow. He came up fighting, muscle memory from training he'd never mentioned to Astraea. The assassin was good, but Jonas had spent 3 years in Earth Special Operations before joining the diplomatic corps. He redirected the second strike, used the assassin's momentum to drive him into the wall hard enough to crack bone. 2 more came through the balcony. Astraea was already moving, surprisingly lethal without weapons. She'd been trained to fight. Of course she had, raised as royalty in a culture built on rigid hierarchies and violent succession. Talvira burst through the main door, rifle blazing. The remaining assassins retreated, but Jonas caught one. He pressed the blade to the assassin's throat. "Who sent you?" The assassin smiled. "You have already lost, human. The seal is gone. The queen's legitimacy dies tonight." Jonas looked at Astraea. Her face had gone pale. "The succession seal," she whispered. "From under the throne, the device you recovered during the last attack." "Was a decoy," Jonas finished, understanding flooding through him. "They wanted us to think we'd stopped them. The real theft happened while everyone was focused on the explosion." The assassin's smile widened. "At dawn, the council convenes to declare the throne vacant. Your queen becomes merely another noble, one who has made many enemies." Astraea's hand found Jonas's shoulder, gripping tight enough to hurt. "Then we have until dawn to prove my right to rule," she said, "and I know exactly how to do it." The succession seal was a palm-sized disk of compressed starlight kept in the high archive under security that made Earth's military installations look like open houses. Except someone had bypassed all of it 3 days ago while everyone focused on explosions and dead rebels. "Inside job," Jonas said, studying the empty containment field. "Someone with clearance." Astraea stood rigid beside him, her perfect composure fracturing. Dawn was 4 hours away, 4 hours to prove her legitimacy or watch her throne evaporate. "Only 7 people have archive access," she said. "Myself, Orvith, Talvira, the 3 high counselors, and—" "Vorin," Jonas finished. The general arrived minutes later, summoned by Talvira. His expression showed appropriate concern. Jonas watched his eyes instead of his face. "This is catastrophic, Your Majesty," Vorin said. "Without the seal, the council can challenge your authority. We must delay the dawn convening, declare martial emergency." "Which would only confirm weakness," Astraea interrupted. "No, we find the seal before dawn, or we prove my right to rule without it." "There is no precedent for—" "Then I will make precedent," her voice cut like frozen glass. "Jonas, how do we find it?" "We don't. We make them bring it to us." Jonas turned to Vorin. "General, spread word through your network that the Queen plans to invoke the Trial of Ascension at dawn, ancient law, older than the seal itself." Vorin's face remained carefully neutral. "The trial has not been invoked in 3 centuries. It requires physical combat against challengers to prove worthiness to rule." "Perfect. Anyone who wants the throne badly enough to steal the seal will want to watch me fail at protecting her during the trial." Jonas met Astraea's eyes. "They'll bring the seal to the convening as evidence of theft, planning to present it after I'm dead and you're vulnerable." "You are not trained for ritual combat," Astraea said quietly. "No, but I don't need to win. I just need to keep you alive long enough to identify who has the seal." Vorin cleared his throat. "This plan has significant flaws." "So does letting the conspiracy win," Jonas replied. "Unless you have a better suggestion, General?" The muscle in Vorin's jaw jumped. "I will spread word of the trial." After he left, Astraea turned on Jonas. "You are asking me to watch you die. I'm asking you to trust that I won't." He caught her hand, ignoring Talvira's presence. This started with you using me as a variable they couldn't predict. Let's finish it the same way." Her fingers tightened around his. "If you die, I will burn their conspiracy to ashes before joining you." Romantic, but let's aim for the option where we both survive. The next 3 hours passed in preparation. Talvira drilled Jonas on ritual combat forms, useless against a trained warrior, but enough to keep him alive slightly longer. Astraea worked her political channels, ensuring the right people would attend the dawn convening. Jonas found Astraea on her balcony an hour before dawn, watching the sky shift from black to deep purple. Having second thoughts, he asked. "Hundreds." She didn't turn. "This is my fault. I should have anticipated the seal being the true target." "You anticipated a conspiracy. The specific tactics don't matter." Jonas moved beside her. "That's the thing about chaos. It adapts." "You are not chaos. You are calculated risk wrapped in apparent randomness." She finally looked at him. "You are my weakness, Jonas Hartley, the one variable I cannot control." "Is that why you claimed me? To try to control the uncontrollable?" "I claimed you because from the moment you noticed the poison, I knew you were the only one in that room truly watching. Everyone else was performing their roles. You were surviving." She leaned closer. "And because when you pulled me through that kitchen, your hand was steady. No fear. Just certainty." Jonas kissed her, pouring 4 days of tension and danger and something infinitely more complicated into it. She responded with desperate intensity, her control shattering completely. When they broke apart, the sky had lightened to violet. "Time to perform," Jonas said. The ceremonial arena occupied the palace's heart, an open space surrounded by elevated galleries. The stone floor bore ancient markings, blood and honor stained into the grain over centuries. The galleries filled rapidly as dawn approached. Astraea stood at the arena's center, wearing armor that looked ceremonial but Jonas suspected was fully functional. He stood 3 paces behind and to her left, the consort's position. The 3 high counselors entered together. Theron looked ancient and satisfied. Behind them came Kelnar, Vorin, and a dozen other high-ranking officials. "Queen Astraea," Theron's voice echoed through the arena. "The council convenes to address concerns regarding the succession seal's disappearance. Without it, your claim requires alternative validation." "I invoke the trial of ascension," Astraea replied, "by ancient law, predating the seal itself. I will prove my right to rule through combat." Murmurs rippled through the galleries. Theron's satisfaction deepened. "The trial requires you to face 3 challengers. Should you fall, the throne passes to the council's appointed successor." "I understand the law." "Then let the first challenger step forward." A warrior descended from the galleries, massive, scarred, moving with predatory grace. Jonas recognized the Eastern Garrison insignia, one of Kelnar's officers. The fight was brutal and brief. Astraea moved like winter itself, cold, inevitable, deadly. The challenger lasted 90 seconds before her blade found his throat. She stood over the body without expression. "Second challenger," Theron called. This one was smarter, faster. The fight lasted longer. Astraea took a hit to her shoulder that drew blue blood, but she adapted, using the warrior's aggression against him. When he fell, she was breathing hard. Jonas watched the galleries. Kelnar leaned close to Vorin, whispering urgently. Vorin's hand moved to his belt, to something hidden beneath his formal robes. "Third challenger." General Vorin descended to the arena floor. The galleries erupted in shocked whispers. A commanding officer challenging his own queen was unprecedented. Vorin drew his blade, and something small and bright fell from his robes, a disk that caught the dawn light like captured starlight. The succession seal hit the stone floor with a clear chime. "Clumsy general," Jonas said loudly. "Might want to pick that up." Every eye in the arena locked on the seal. Vorin's face twisted with rage and realization. He'd been so focused on the challenge that he'd forgotten about the evidence in his own pocket. "Treason," Astraea said quietly, but the word filled the space. "You would challenge me while carrying the stolen proof of my legitimacy?" "The seal means nothing," Vorin snarled. "Your rule makes us weak. Diplomatic relations with primitives, trade agreements instead of conquest. The ascendancy was built on strength, not negotiation." "The ascendancy was built on adaptation," Astraea countered. Every dynasty that refused to evolve died. You would see us fossilized rather than embrace change. Vorin raised his blade. Then I will end your weakness now. He moved with deadly precision, but Astraea was already tired, already bleeding. Jonas saw the opening, saw the general's blade angle for Astraea's exposed side, saw her realization come too late. Jonas intercepted with the ceremonial blade Talvira had given him. The impact shattered the ornamental weapon and drove him to his knees, but it bought Astraea the second she needed. Her blade found Vorin's chest, driving deep. The general fell, blue blood pooling beneath him. "The conspiracy," Jonas gasped. "Kelnar, Theron." Talvira's rifle cracked twice. Kelnar dropped from the gallery. Theron tried to run, but royal guards blocked every exit. Astraea knelt beside Jonas, her hands checking him for wounds. "You were not supposed to interfere. The trial forbids." "Rules are for people who want to die following them," Jonas managed to smile. "Besides, you're mine to protect, remember?" She kissed him then in front of the entire court, her blood-stained hands framing his face. The galleries erupted, some cheering, some protesting, all witnessing their queen choose the human over ascendancy tradition. When she pulled back, her eyes blazed with something fierce and possessive. "Mine," she agreed, "as I am yours." The aftermath of Vorin's death brought 3 days of political chaos that made the assassination attempts look peaceful. Counselor Theron confessed under interrogation, revealing a network of conspirators that stretched through half the military command. Astraea spent 18-hour days restructuring her government, executing some traitors and exiling others, rebuilding trust with those who remained. Jonas watched her work with something approaching awe. She was ruthless and fair in equal measure, never hesitating but never cruel. The young queen who'd claimed him as property had been a performance. This was the real Astraea, brilliant, adaptable, willing to break her own culture's traditions to save it. On the 4th day, she summoned him to her private study. "It is finished," she said without preamble. "The conspiracy is dismantled. The succession seal is restored. My authority is unquestioned." She stood by the window, backlit by afternoon light. "Which means I owe you a choice." Jonas's chest tightened. He'd known this was coming. "The ancient law that bound you to me was invoked under duress," Astraea continued, still not looking at him. "The council has agreed that given the circumstances, you may be released from your obligations. You can return to Earth with full honors, your service to the ascendancy recognized. Ambassador Haynes has already transmitted the offer. They want you back, promoted to senior diplomatic status." "That's generous." "It is what you deserve." Finally she turned. Her expression was perfectly controlled, but something in her eyes betrayed the cost of that control. "You saved my life. You exposed the conspiracy. You helped me prove that adaptation is not weakness. Because of you, the ascendancy will change. Slowly, perhaps, but change nonetheless." Jonas crossed the study, stopping just within reach. "That sounds like a goodbye speech." "It is a release. You are free, Jonas Hartley. No obligations, no claims, no ancient laws binding you to a throne you never wanted." Her voice remained steady. "You can leave. You should leave. Return to your own people, your own world. Live the life that was stolen from you when I invoked the trial by blood." "And if I don't want to leave?" Something cracked in her composure. "Do not make this harder than it must be." "You're pushing me away." "I am giving you the choice I stole from you." Her hands clenched at her sides. "You were right from the beginning. I used you, manipulated you, claimed you as property because it served my purposes. That is not—" She stopped, breathing carefully. "That is not how one treats someone they—" "Someone they what?" Astraea turned away sharply. "Leave, Jonas, while you still can, before I become selfish enough to ask you to stay." Jonas moved behind her, close enough to feel the cold radiating from her skin. "What if I want you to be selfish?" "You do not understand what you are saying. To stay here, to remain as my consort, means giving up everything. Your career, your world, your future among your own kind. You would be bound to me, to this court, to a culture that will never fully accept you." Her voice dropped. "I have already taken so much from you. I will not take the rest." "You're not taking, I'm choosing." She spun to face him, and for the first time since he'd met her, Astraea looked genuinely afraid. "Why? Why would you choose this? I have given you nothing but danger and manipulation and—" Jonas kissed her, silencing the spiral. She resisted for half a second before melting against him, her control shattering as it always did when he touched her. When they broke apart, her eyes were bright with something that might have been tears if ascendancy biology worked that way. "You gave me purpose," Jonas said quietly, "direction, a fight worth having, and somewhere in the middle of all your manipulation and ancient laws and political scheming, you gave me something else." "What?" "You, the real you. The one who breaks her own rules to survive. The one who's terrified of being weak but keeps choosing trust anyway. The one who kisses me like the world's ending and then tries to send me away to protect me from yourself." Astraea's hand touched his face, trembling slightly. "I am not good at this. Caring, wanting. My people are taught to control such things, to channel them into duty and honor. But you—" She stopped, struggling with words. "You make me want to be selfish, to keep you here, consequences be damned, and that terrifies me more than any assassination attempt." "Good. Terror keeps you sharp." Jonas caught her hand, pressing it against his chest. "I'm staying, Astraea, not because of ancient laws or obligations. I'm staying because I choose you. All of you, the queen and the manipulator and the woman who's afraid to admit she feels anything." "You are chaos incarnate," she whispered. "And you're the ice queen who finally learned to melt. We're perfect for each other." She laughed, a sound Jonas had never heard from her before, genuine and unguarded. Then she pulled him toward the sleeping chamber, and Jonas stopped thinking about politics or duty or anything beyond the feeling of her skin against his, cold fire burning through every careful control. Later, wrapped in silk sheets with Astraea's head on his chest, Jonas traced the ritual markings on her shoulder. They pulsed with her heartbeat, glowing faintly in the dim light. "What do they mean?" he asked. "The markings?" "They are family lineage, history written in living ink. Each generation adds to the pattern." Her fingers traced his collarbone. "If you truly stay, if you bind yourself to me permanently, you will receive them as well. The court will inscribe our union into both our skins. It cannot be undone." "Sounds permanent." "It is meant to be. The ascendancy does not believe in temporary bonds." She propped herself up on one elbow, studying his face. "This is your last chance to reconsider. Once the ceremony is performed, you are mine in every legal and cultural sense. No going back." Jonas considered the question seriously. Earth, his career, the life he'd built, all of it gone, replaced by an alien throne, political intrigue, and a woman who'd claimed him as property before learning to see him as an equal. "When's the ceremony?" he asked. Relief flooded her expression. 3 days. It will be public, the entire court witnessing our bond being made permanent. They will not be kind. Many still see you as a primitive curiosity." "Let them. I've faced worse than aristocratic disapproval." "Have you?" she smiled, something wicked in it. "Wait until you meet my extended family. Voron's betrayal will seem pleasant by comparison." The ceremony took place in the same arena where Astraea had proved her right to rule. The galleries filled with nobles, military officers, and foreign dignitaries, including a delegation from Earth, led by Ambassador Haynes, who looked like she couldn't decide whether to congratulate Jonas or have him psychologically evaluated. Astraea wore white this time, armor replaced by flowing robes that caught the light like ice. The ritual markings on her skin glowed brighter than Jonas had ever seen them. He wore ceremonial blue, feeling only slightly ridiculous. The inscription master was ancient, his own markings so extensive they covered visible skin completely. He spoke in old ascendancy dialect that Jonas couldn't follow, but the meaning was clear when the needles touched his shoulder. The pain was sharp and cold, like being stabbed with frozen lightning. The ink burned as it sank beneath his skin, alive and aware. Jonas watched the pattern spread, not identical to Astraea's, but complementary, 2 designs that would only make sense together. Astraea stood beside him throughout, her hand gripping his. When the inscription master finished, she touched the new markings, and Jonas felt the connection snap into place. He could sense her heartbeat matching his own, could feel her presence like gravity. "Mine," she said softly, for his ears only. Yours, Jonas agreed, and you're mine, equal trade. She kissed him in front of the entire court, public and possessive and real. The galleries erupted in mixed reactions, but Jonas ignored them all. He'd chosen his path, chosen her, chosen the chaos of an alien throne over the safety of home. When they broke apart, Astraea's eyes held something fierce and satisfied and infinitely complex. "Welcome to the ascendancy," she said. "Try not to start any more revolutions." No promises. She laughed, and Jonas realized he'd never get tired of that sound. The Ice Queen learning warmth, control giving way to joy. He pulled her close, feeling the ritual markings pulse in synchronization, binding them together in ways that transcended law or culture or species. Outside, the ascendancy stretched across 100 worlds, vast and cold and beautiful. Inside, wrapped in Astraea's arms, Jonas had found something he'd never expected when that first blade fell during the poisoned negotiations. He'd found home,